It is Scott Herndon. It's a beautiful day in North Idaho. It's actually May 6th, 2022. A little bit breezy outside, so I'm wearing the headphone mics so that you don't pick up the wind noise. I just want to briefly talk about the elections in 11 days, May 17th, between liberal Jim Woodward and me, Scott Herndon. And this is the election. There is no election in November because no Democrat filed. So whoever wins this Republican primary wins the election. Now, this is an election with very clear differences between the two candidates for the Idaho State Senate District 1 up here in Boundary in Bonner County. And I've talked before about the fact that I've made changes to the Republican Party platform. I have authored changes, and these changes will give you an idea of how conservative I am. And then you decide. There are a bunch of people who want to say, hey, anybody who's really constitutionally conservative is a radical or they're an extremist. Well, you decide. If you believe that the Constitution and the words in it, both the federal and the state Constitution, mean something, then you're probably going to want to vote for me, and you'll get that by listening to these changes. So I'm going to just briefly talk about these changes. I have been to the last two Republican Party conventions for the state of Idaho. 2018 and 2020, I traveled with 530 other people around the state to one location, and we considered changes to the platform. These are the principles of the Republican Party. What is the Republican Party in Idaho? That's the question. And the platform answers what the party is. It's different than the Democrat Party. It's different than the Constitution Party and the Libertarian Party and any other party. And I really care about conservative constitutional values. So they told me in 2018 as a delegate that I could make changes to the Idaho Republican Party platform. Now, then the whole convention, you have to present your changes. So I authored some. Then the platform committee has to adopt it. Then the entire convention of delegates, 530 of them, have to approve your change. And I have managed to get 7 changes made in 2 conventions to the platform. Now let's go through them. They're pretty cool. Okay, the first one was on the balance of powers. So we know that the federal government has certain powers and the state governments have other powers. And sometimes the federal government overreaches. We also know that there's a balance of power between the different branches of government, the legislature, the governor, the executive branch, the president at the federal level, and the judicial branch, the courts. Well, we had a section already about the 10th Amendment, which is in the Constitution, right? It's the Bill of Rights. And this is what we said previously. So it's Article 1, Section 5 in our platform for the state of Idaho GOP. And you can read this at idgop.org. Just look about and then read the party platform. It says, we believe the state of Idaho should strongly assert its sovereignty under the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It has now come about that the accumulated usurpations by the federal government of Idaho's state sovereignty has reached a point of complete intolerance. That's a pretty strong statement. That's kind of like revolutionary 1776 type language, but this is your Idaho Republican Party. So then, but it goes on to say that the Idaho Republican Party hereby recommends that the Idaho legislature and governor nullify any and all existing and future unconstitutional federal mandates and laws, funded or unfunded. Well, the part that I authored, it was a change to that, and it also included federal court opinions. Why? Because occasionally there are just these radical federal court opinions that are straight judicial activism, and the state of Idaho, instead of litigating it, should just not implement it. They shouldn't ignore it. I know that sounds crazy, but that's how the Constitution is actually designed to work. The federal judiciary was not meant to be your supreme ruler. They rely on the states to implement their opinions as if they're law, and so occasionally, on very serious subjects, the state should say, we're not going to implement that. So that got adopted and added. So that was one of my changes. Then on medical freedom, it is actually happening that hospitals in the state of Idaho, including through CPS, are basically terminating parental rights when it comes to medical decisions. So if a doctor says you need to do this for your child, and the parent says, I have a different idea, then they will go legal on you and they will take possession of your child, authority over your child, and do the thing that you didn't want to do. It happens a lot in Idaho. It happens a lot in Kootenai County, at Kootenai Health. And so I saw that this was happening. I almost experienced it myself many years ago. And so under Article 13, Health and Welfare of the Idaho Republican Party platform, I wrote the following change. I said, it's Section 2, and it's subsection F, and it says, we support as supreme the authority of parents in all medical decisions for their children, including who they pick for providers and what kind of treatments they select. Yeah, that's why we have the unit of the family. Parents have legitimate authority, and they have the ultimate say. And so the Republican Party respects the family structure. We respect the American family. We respect the family as God designed it. So that change of mind got adopted by the Republican Party in Idaho. Then on marriage, this is kind of a fun one. It really matters. So obviously there have been attacks on the traditional American family. In 2015, the Supreme Court of the United States said that states had to accept homosexual marriage between men and women. And all along, the states for about 100 years have been licensing marriage. So I wrote a couple of changes. Did you know in the Idaho Constitution already, in the Constitution of the state, it says that marriage is between one man and one woman, and you don't need to be a biology expert to figure out what that means? Well, so I added the following. Traditional marriage was already in our platform. It's Article 14 under the American family. And previously it said, we call upon government officials and legislators to protect the traditional family and use all means possible to prevent expansion of the definition of marriage beyond that of a bond between one man and one woman. And this is an area where the 10th Amendment speaks. The states have the authority, in the 9th Amendment, the power is in the people. We retain the right to define what marriage is. Actually, God defines it. But the point is, constitutionally, we retain that right at the state level. The federal government doesn't control that. So as far as what marriage is, it's between one man and one woman. And I added, and this was my change, we recognize that the definition of marriage and its administration is not subject to federal authority, and that Idaho is authorized to nullify any federal congressional act, federal mandate, or court opinion that is contrary to traditional marriage. In other words, Idaho retains all the authority over the definition of marriage. But also, did you know if you get married in the state of Idaho without a marriage license, then the minister who marries you just committed a crime and can be put in jail? Well, that's wrong. The state should recognize marriages without a marriage license. Yes, there should probably be a ceremony. There should be a public acknowledgement. There needs to be a legal record of the marriage. But nowhere, until 100 years ago, states didn't license marriage. And the reason they started licensing marriage was because they wanted to prevent interracial marriage. It came out of the southern United States. Well, we should just reject that paradigm. We should at least recognize that where people have a conviction that the state has no place in their marriage and they don't want to have to go, a man should not have to go to the state and a woman go to the state and get permission through a license to get married. They just shouldn't. And so we added this to our Republican Party platform. 500 people accepted this at the convention, that we recognize traditional marriage without the issuance of a marriage license for those who for religious purposes object to the role of the state in licensing traditional marriage. So that's another change. Now, on abortion. Why is abortion wrong? Well, most people that think it's wrong will tell you it's wrong, not because it's inconvenient and ugly, but because it actually terminates the innocent life of another human being, made in the image of God. So it's an unjust killing, and because of that, we did not actually have a really strong statement in our Republican Party platform about that. So I wrote, and the entire convention voted on it. The platform committee passed it unanimously, and the convention affirmed it, and it said that we affirm that abortion is murder from the moment of fertilization. All children should be protected regardless of the circumstances of conception, including persons conceived in rape and incest. Yes, we shouldn't put to death a child because of the crime of its father, right? The federal judiciary has played the tyrant. Yes, we use the word tyrant in dozens of Supreme Court decisions since Roe v. Wade. Yes, there have been over 40 Supreme Court decisions. If they reverse Roe this year, I am going to be surprised. I mean, I'm already surprised about the recent release. I hope they do. And then Idaho has some work to do to outlaw abortion. But listen to this. We also say that Idaho has the sovereign authority to defy the federal judiciary and to outlaw all murders by abortion within the state's jurisdiction now, even before a reversal of Roe v. Wade. And that's what we should have done 50 years ago. We shouldn't accept unlawful court opinions that say it's okay to kill 70 million Americans. So we have that now in the Idaho State Republican Party platform, a change I authored. Now on guns. I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in Article 1, Section 11 of the Idaho Constitution that you and me have the right to keep and bear arms, and that right shall not be infringed. That's the Second Amendment, and the people have that right, and that right shall not be abridged, is the Idaho Constitution. Yet, in 1986, and in other acts of the Congress infringed on that right. You can't buy a machine gun made by a manufacturer today. You just can't. It's illegal, according to the Congress. That was the 1986 Firearm Owners Protection Act. And Ronald Reagan signed that. He was a good president, but he didn't do everything right. And so I wrote a change respecting the Second Amendment and the Idaho Constitution, and the convention accepted this. And it said this. It's under gun rights, Article 16. It says, we find that the Congress violated the Second Amendment's protections in the 1986 Firearm Owners Protection Act when the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms interpreted that bill under, it's called the Hughes Amendment, as a prohibition on the civilian possession of any fully automatic firearm manufactured after May 19th, 1986. Yep, that's our situation in America right now. The ATF will come and arrest you. It's illegal for you to buy a firearm, an automatic firearm manufactured after May 1986. Well, that's an obvious infringement in violation of the Second Amendment in the state of Idaho. The Republican Party recognizes that is a violation of the actual law, the constitutions of the state and the nation. Finally, 2 years ago, I got a change made on judicial elections. Did you know, according to the Constitution in Idaho, we elect our judges, our local judges, our county judges. So these are called district judges. And so you're going to see 9 of them on your ballot in 2 weeks, and then in the general election in November. But you never really, I'm just going to say this as a principle. Judges come into their law practice, into their judge practice, with biases and opinions that are political in nature. They do. Every person is political. We have political philosophies. And we want voters to know what those philosophies are. So right now, the judges pretend that they're not biased, and so they don't attach themselves to a political party. But that just denies human nature. A lot of states have judges run as partisans. In other words, I'm a Republican judge or I'm a Democrat judge. That way we kind of know where you're coming from when you're going to make decisions on things like abortion and guns and marriage and other things. Because it does matter what your political philosophy is. So I wrote a change and the party adopted it that said that we support the election of judges in a partisan election process. In other words, they would identify what political party they associate themselves with. And that change was requested of me, and I brought it to the convention by a lawyer who lives here in Bonner County. So that kind of tells you where I'm coming from philosophically, politically. And yes, I am the conservative, the real conservative, running in this Republican primary. And in 11 days, the voters are going to decide, do we want conservative representation in the Senate, or do we want liberal Jim, the current senator? It's a huge difference between us, and you can see what those differences are at liberaljim.com. I made it easy for you. All the links are to the state legislature's website and his voting record and how he voted in committee or on the floor of the Senate. We are not fabricating his record. You can check it out before you make your vote. I would humbly appreciate your vote for Scott Herndon for the State Senate District 1 on May 17th. You guys have a great day.